I'm John Wuorinen. I'm the Director of Admissions and Tuition Assistance here at Columbus Academy. Welcome to our second Zoom at noon. Last week we spoke with our head of school, Melissa Soderberg, about the independent school model. This morning we're talking about character development, specifically in the lower school and the middle school. We have Rhee, who's the associate head of the middle school here at Columbus Academy. We have Gabriel Paynter, who is the director of academic programs. Both are new here at Columbus Academy in terms of the faculty being here on the faculty. So I'll let them quickly introduce themselves, and we're going to get started. As questions occur to you, this is a very free-form experience here. Please put your questions in the chat if you have any sort of question. No question too odd, no question too small. We look forward to being able to help you understand Columbus Academy. Again, as I always say, this is the beginning or the continuation of a conversation. Our goal is to have you learn as much about Columbus Academy as you can. So with all that, Ed, why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure. Happy to start. Hi, everyone. I'm Rhee. As John said, I'm the new associate head of middle school. It is my first year here at Columbus Academy in this role. Previously, just previous to this position, I was the director of middle school at Children's Day School in San Francisco. So, but I grew up here in Columbus. I'm actually an alum of Columbus Academy. I graduated in '93. And so I'm really just so pleased to be back at home, back on the place where I grew up, and to be here back in Columbus with my folks. Both my parents are still living here in Columbus, so it's nice to have my kids and my family back here in Columbus to be here with my folks. As I said, I graduated in '93, and just really happy to be back here at Academy, seeing all of the changes, all the wonderful changes that have occurred since I graduated, and to be back part of the community has been really wonderful.
What are the grades of your children?
I have two boys, and they are in grades 2 and grades 5. So they're both in the lower school, and their transition, I couldn't be happier about their transition. They've been really enjoying coming into Academy, and it always challenges moving to a new school, and especially across the country. My boys have known California for most of their lives, but they really, of course, they're talking about the dining hall and talking about their classes, and talking about their teachers, and of course love PE as all lower school kids do. But
Great.
It's really wonderful.
Great. We look forward to talking to them. Gabriel.
Thank you. As John said, I'm Gabriel Paynter. I'm the new lower school director of academic programs. It's my first year at Columbus Academy. I spent the last 16 years in education, both in public and in independent schools, teaching grades 5th and 3rd grade. My last position was in Chicago at the Latin School of Chicago. And there I did a lot of work training other teachers in responsive classroom, did a lot of work with the social emotional program and identifying standards for social emotional learning. And I moved this summer to Columbus to work here at Columbus Academy, and I'm thrilled to be here. It's just such an amazing place, and I'm loving the position so far, loving getting to know the kids. Had a very warm welcome from everyone here, and I actually grew up in Akron. I haven't lived in Akron since I graduated college, so I was in Chicago for the last 16 years, so I'm thrilled to be back in Ohio.
Great. Well, both of you have programs in your divisions that are specific curricula that help the school develop character and what's called social emotional learning. Gabriel, yours is responsive classroom, and you've been involved with it for quite a while and teaching it. Why don't you start off, and then Ed, you talk about the switch into the Origins program.
Great. So in the lower school, every teacher is trained in a program called Responsive Classroom. And Responsive Classroom is an educational framework. So within this educational framework, it kind of has a philosophy that social emotional competencies is just as important as these academic pieces. So just as much as we teach the academic program, which is a lot of academics at Columbus Academy, obviously, we also teach a lot of social emotional competencies. So these include cooperation, assertion, responsibility, empathy, and self-control. And then we also are teaching these academic competencies such as growth mindset, perseverance, and things like that. So throughout this program, the responsive classroom program that starts in our younger grades, there's several pieces throughout the day that really embrace this educational philosophy. So every day starts off with a morning meeting, and every room will see doing a morning meeting. And the morning meeting has 4 important parts to it. It has a greeting at the beginning. So all the students are learning how to greet each other in different ways. They're learning how to make eye contact, respond to each other. Every morning meeting has a share aspect where all the students do some kind of a share. It could be an academic share, it could be a personal share. And again, they're learning how to respond, to listen to each other and actually respond on what they're hearing instead of just kind of thinking about what they're going to say next. Every morning meeting also has a group building activity, the purpose of the activities to get students learning how to cooperate, learning how to take turns and all those things like that. And then every morning meeting ends with a morning message, which is a really nice way to set up the day, to set up the tone for the day. The students often participate in the morning message. And then as the kids get older, their morning meeting is more and more led by students. So students are learning how to lead these morning meetings as well as participate in them. Some other pieces of the responsive classroom encompasses is teacher language. So throughout the building, when students go from each class, they can have the same expectations about how the teachers are speaking to them. It's very direct, clear language, so students know what to expect. We have something called interactive modeling. So teachers are actually showing and modeling each step of the way, and then students are doing it with them to kind of learn these procedures and classroom procedures. At the beginning of the year, all the students are involved in making class rules, which then lead us into if there's ever a need for consequences. They're all called logical consequences because they're based on the action of the student. And then throughout that, there's some work with academic choice and things like that, but it's very student focused, and the teachers are very much teaching responsibly to what's going on with the students. And then on top of that, we also have teachers who come in and teach wellness to our students. And then we're also actually just this morning, I was working with a team of teachers to identify, looking at the Ohio State standards for social emotional learning and just really working with those to develop based on the vision of Columbus Academy, as well as our students, what are the essential standards that we really want to see happening from grade to grade, and what can we pull in to continue making sure that we are adhering to those standards.
Cool. Well, we'll hear about some examples of different things as we go. Ed, how about in the middle school?
Thanks. So in the middle school, we just introduced a new program actually to our advisory, which meets 3 times a week, 3 times a rotation, I should say, called Developmental Designs. And very similar to Responsive Classroom, it opens up, it has different parts to it, including a greeting, a share, and an activity, just like in Responsive Classroom. And so it really is a continuation of the work that the lower school does. It continues on through the middle school, and we continue to make sure that the kids are working to interact together with each other, and wanting to make sure that the kids have a lot of different concentric circles of community, right? So they're able to interact with one another and really learn to make sure that we're being really intentional about the ways in which we're speaking with each other. Similarly, we want to make sure that the language that we're using across our classrooms are consistent. In the middle school, of course, our students are moving from classroom to classroom. They're in different subject-specific classrooms. They no longer have one central homeroom where they are, and so we want to make sure that we have consistent elements as the kids are moving throughout their day. You know, one of the things that I really love about Columbus Academy is that we really have really wonderful middle school minded educators, in that they care as much about the kids and who they are becoming as much as the content of their classroom. So we have really amazing content experts who are experts in their field, but then they also want to make sure that we're working on the executive functioning, we're working on the organization, we're working on all of the pieces of who these kids are, and wanting to make sure that through that character development, we're able to make sure that it's not an either or, that it's really a both and, right? Because success is not just the grade, right? It's how they get there.
Sure.
So it's really wonderful to have the responsive classroom piece in the lower school, really continued on through the middle school, and to have all of these similar elements to make sure that the kids have that consistency throughout really kind of pivotal moments through their academic development.
Well, that's interesting, because I think about the transition. One of the interesting pieces of Columbus Academy is that there are actually 15 grades here, right? So you start out with responsive classroom. Talk to us a little bit about what a conflict might look like. When I think about lower school and middle school, you might be out on the playground, you might be in the hallway. What happens when there's conflict between two students? First, in lower school, and how does it move up?
Mm-hmm. Well, part of that is we think about one of the cares, there's social emotional competence we talked about as assertion, and really allowing students to kind of speak up for themselves when something is going wrong or they're having a conflict. So instead of students coming to the teachers and saying, help me with this, which we want them to do if they need to, we also teach them how to directly respond to someone else who might be influencing them. They might say something like, Ed, when you do this, it makes me feel this way. So they're actually at that moment responding to the behavior and also telling the other person how it's making them feel and giving the other person an opportunity to say, oh, I didn't realize, or oh, I'm making you feel this way. So we're going to fix this. So we really do work hard on helping students manage these conflicts on their own by being assertive and standing up for themselves, but also understanding where the other student is or maybe coming from.
Cool. And I think in the middle school, so certainly the assertion is part of it. In the middle school, it gets pretty complicated. Middle schoolers, that they step into it pretty often. And the thing that we talk about in the middle school is that we actually want you to make those mistakes, right? So making mistakes is the only way you're going to learn, right? So we want you to make the mistakes when you're in middle school, so we can talk about it, figure it out. You can take responsibility for any mistakes that you've made, and so that way you can move forward, right? What we see a lot more in the middle school is kind of the relational aggression piece of it, and kind of the social upheaval that oftentimes happens during the middle school years. That's really what we're trying to navigate. And so working to try and make sure that kids know that it's okay, that how they're feeling is okay, and that we can work through the different kind of ways in which they can make mistakes. Oftentimes, the other, I would say, piece of it is kind of stepping into it based on social media or other things that really complicated ideas and topics that they're diving into for the first time really in middle school, and they're really trying to figure out, well, how do I feel, as opposed to just kind of parroting what they're hearing about, either what they're hearing from their folks at home or what their friends are saying or what have you, but how do I actually feel about it, and being able to discern that and express it in a way that is no longer the binary I'm right, you're wrong. And really, dealing with those gradations of gray is really what we begin to try and navigate it and parse out for the middle schoolers.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, as one ages, again, right versus wrong, maybe a topic for early elementary. Even by the time they're in 4th or 5th grade, for the most part, the kids generally know what's right and wrong. Yeah. So that continuum is that's where the friction is, right? Absolutely. That's where the excitement.
Yeah, in the younger grades, they're just learning how to just be around other people,
especially after the pandemic.
Yeah, and especially a whole group of people, and so that's just part of their learning when they're younger too. It's just like, how do I share this space with 16 other humans so there's a lot of these conversations you have to talk about with the kids and how to deal with these conflicts at that age, but they look very different as you go through the grades.
So you're probably not working on leadership very much in the very young grades. Hopefully by the time they're going into middle school, they would be more focused is there some leadership that goes on?
Absolutely, yeah. I think that's something, yeah, definitely, yeah.
And sometimes it's hard, in the middle school, oftentimes they feel like, oh, we're the lost division, right? It's like, there are so many things going on. There's a lot of kind of turning into oneself, right, in middle school, and wanting it's the ultimate kind of contradiction of middle school, right? It's like I wanna stand out, but by blending into the background and making sure that I'm exactly like everyone else, right? But in the middle school, I think, especially during that developmental stage, what I find one of the easiest ways to kind of get kids to break out of that kind of myopic and kind of having those severe blinders on kind of situation is to put them into roles of leadership and saying, actually you are responsible. So you have to see beyond just yourself. And
How do we do that in middle school?
I think
Dance,
well,
probably.
DENS is one of them. So DENS is a program where we have 8th graders actually leading a program with 6th and 7th graders, and so they're actually they are responsible for creating and leading these the DENS sessions with the kids, right? And so when they're given what I always love seeing is you have these kids who are really in a developmental stage where they are meant to be kind of mired in self, really break out and realize that I'm actually much more powerful than what I believed, and so I think having those opportunities where kids are taking responsibility. I think the other place is service. Right now we're doing the Kids for Kids food drive and
A school-wide food drive, clothing drive, parents get involved even, so I'm sorry.
But yeah, no, which is really wonderful. And within that, within that project, there are opportunities for leadership and for kids to take responsibility. And I think anytime when kids are kind of flexing those empathetic muscles and wanting to make sure that we're helping them open up their perspective to others, that's really where we see that happen.
I was going to add to that too, just in thinking of the leadership piece, it's a really pretty cool thing when you have a lower school that's from 3-year-olds, explorers, all the way through 5th grade. And I don't think the 5th graders always necessarily think of themselves as leaders. And so recently we kind of went into the 5th grade rooms and we were just like talking with them about what an amazing opportunity you have to be the leaders of the school for these younger students who some have never been in the school before. And we had some kids who were learning remotely last year or in a hybrid situation. So some of these kids, even up to kindergarten, had never really actually been in school. And so these 5th graders have really stepped it up and just helped out with just being a leader in the school by really just showing like all this responsive classroom work we've done, all these things that we've done, really helping out with that. And then we have our buddy program as well. So
Sure.
We have our 5th graders who are buddied with 2nd graders, and that's not a huge age gap, but at that age to them, it's a very big age gap. And the way those 5th graders step up again and just treat the 2nd graders and help them and guide them and just talk to them, it's been really, it's a really cool thing. So.
And there's some other buddies as well, I think.
Yeah, every grade has buddies within the lower school, but then our kindergartners are also buddies with our seniors.
Oh, yes.
Which is a very big deal.
Well, and Melissa Soderberg, head of school, again, talking about the kindergarten senior buddy program. The way she tells the stories is kind of funny. She said, when I was during my high school career, if I was only around students of my own age, I didn't always make the best choices. Mm-hmm. But if someone is looking up to me, I need to make sure that I'm making my kindergarten buddy proud. That the kids really will step up. So great. Ed mentioned community service. Community service a little bit harder in the lower school. How does that look? I mean, but there is some community service that goes on. But can you?
Yeah, I'm not sure. This is my new first year here, so I can't speak too much of this. But I know that every grade has a community service event planned for the year.
Okay.
And I can't speak too much of what they've done this year so far. I haven't done any of that yet, but I know it's on the horizon for each grade to does some kind of community service project.
As an editorial, I can quickly mention that I don't know of another school. We actually have a member of the staff, Christy Benning, who is the department chair of service. So the community service actually has a department here, like there's the math department or the English department. I don't know of another independent school in at least in the area. I don't even know of another independent school that has a service department. So maybe they do.
I mean, I think,
schools.
and I think one of the things that I really appreciate about that is that, it is organic. It came up organically. I mean, it's something that the school has been involved in. I mean, for as long as I can remember, right?
Yep.
Even when I was a student, when you were a student, being involved in service was part of, being a part of the academy community.
And just while we're on this topic, and service will be a Zoom meeting later in the year, but Melissa Soderberg actually says, in a sense, there's nothing voluntary about community service here. It's the expectation, and that we want to make sure that we're graduating students who know it is their responsibility. It's not, oh, I've got a little extra time, I'll go ahead and get involved with something.
Yeah.
It's actually how one is a complete person. Let's see. As we move on down, so one question that comes up frequently as I'm giving tours is asking about bullying. How does it exist here at Columbus Academy, and how would we deal with it? I can't imagine that we are immune. I would love to be.
I don't think there's any middle school that's immune to that type of student conflict. And what it really comes down to are the student relationships and wanting to make sure that when you have these situations come up that you're working through them, and of course it's individual to each student, each child, and each relationship. And so wanting to make sure that we're talking through all of the particulars. Fortunately, every single student is really well known, at Academy, and so it's never just one thing that's coming up for any particular child, either on the giving end or the receiving end, right? And so with each of those particulars, wanting to make sure that we're keeping all of that in perspective, and of course partnering with the families to make sure that the families are involved as well, and that they understand what's going on is really important.
And those can be difficult conversations.
They can be difficult conversations because obviously when you're talking about your own child, there's a lot of emotion attached to that, and there's a lot of protection, protective instincts that kick in. And I think what's helpful is knowing that the school is there with you, right? And wanting to navigate that together. And again, part of it is understanding that there's much more to this situation than just one child being mean to another child, right? And especially with something like bullying, that's something that's happening over time, right? And so there is an aspect of an ongoing relationship that is difficult and challenging for these kids, and so wanting to make sure that you're really kind of deconstructing that, because it's really about it's never as simple as this child has been just bullying this child and end of story. There are always so many different nuances, and so wanting to make sure that we're breaking that down so that way each child also understands the role that they play, right? Because it's never just one way, and wanting to make sure that they understand. So this is and these are the steps. This is what's going on. And here are the ways in which I can be proactive, right? And giving strategies and make sure those supports are in place, because it's not just about the one incident, right? It's about well, what's going to happen next, right?
Sure.
Because it's not just handling one situation in isolation. It's about, so how do we build the skills, right? How do we continue to build skills? How do we scaffold so that way they can continue to develop themselves to handle any variety of situations they may run into.
Great. Anything to add?
Yeah, I was going to say, especially in the lower school, I think, as I said before, students at that age are just learning how to be in a space with each other at this age. And so they might need help perceiving how other students react to their behavior, and they might need help knowing how students will react to their own behavior. I think what's really wonderful about the students at the lower school, especially throughout this responsive classroom piece, is they are very good at being assertive. They are very good at telling someone else, when you're doing this, it's making me feel this way, which that can cancel out on a lot of this needy behavior when they're really being clear with someone else how things feel. On top of that, we have very small class sizes, so our classes tend to be very, they get along very well. They spend a lot of time together. The teachers work very hard with all this team building work. Something I love about Columbus Academy, which is great too, is that teachers actually go to recess. Because in my past experience, a lot of behavior at times like at recess, and if it's not handled with a lower school student right at that moment, that's when things can start to spin. And so when the teachers are out there with the students, number one, they're monitoring what's going on. They're also planning games for the students to play in. But also, if there is a conflict, they're there if they need to be right then and there before it starts to, spin, like you said. And on top of that, our parents are extremely supportive. The teachers are very good about speaking to parents if something is coming up, because the students are telling teachers because there's that trust there. So students are telling teachers and things up. So from what I see here, number one, the students are lovely. They get along very well here. All parties involved.
That's great.
If we need to be. So.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I really love about the responsive classroom program and developmental design is, and it doesn't happen at every school that has these programs, but it happens here at Academy where an emphasis is on the teachers being engaged in those kind of free spaces, right? Because it never is in the classroom,
Right.
Where that kind of conflict occurs, right? It's on the playground, in the hallways, in the bathrooms, or whatever. It's in the dining hall. It's in those kinds of spaces where those conflicts really kind of flare up and come to the fore. And so it's really helpful to have the teachers there who know the kids best, who have the relationship and are available to be there for them and to help them navigate, because it's not someone who's just interacting with the child just during recess. It's somebody who knows everything that's going on, like maybe they just bombed a test, maybe this just went on, or I know that they're struggling with that, or these are the teachers and the advisors. These are the people that know the kids best, and so it's so important to make sure that they're available in those moments it's an opportunity to strengthen that relationship and strengthen that bond, and for them to know, that trust piece is huge, and you can't build that trust if you're not there.
Right.
And that bullying, that's a big word. So it takes a while to get to that point. And if
Absolutely.
you are there, the teacher is there at recess. We have teachers sitting with the kids at lunch. Every step of the way, these things don't just, it builds and builds and builds if things aren't done about it. So I think that's a great point. That works.
Well, Nancy, do we have questions?
Not right now.
Okay. This is moving beyond just kind of social emotional learning, and you mentioned the wellness class in the lower school. That's actually run by our counselor, and we do have counseling services. How do the counselors sometimes get involved with the social emotional learning, the character development piece?
Oh, we have an amazing counselor at the lower school. I've learned so much from him in the time that I've been. He's great. And he goes in. Sean Diddy, he's amazing. He knows every student in the lower school because he goes into every class and teaches wellness. So when we have these moments as well, when something comes up, whether it's a behavior piece, it's a student who's having a hard day, every kid knows Sean Diddy so well. So he's there for them to come into the office to talk with them. If there is a conflict happening, he has a trust with all the kids. So it's really is an amazing piece. And on top of that, he's teaching wellness. So he's seeing, what's going on. If there is an issue, like we're talking about this constant issue at recess, it seems to be coming up. we partner with Sean and say, so this seems to be an issue in this grade. And he's great at pulling out resources, things like that, to actually focus his wellness lessons on what is actually needed by the students.
Sure,
So
great.
some grades might be right now needing just like, just help just like with calming down, or like their work, like just like breathing exercise, things that other ones are actually focusing on this conflict resolution piece. It's based on what the class needs. And so he's fantastic.
Terrific.
Yeah, I'll actually, just through the experience of my own kids, being new to Academy, they love Mr. Diddy.
Mm-hmm.
And so even in the short time that they've been able to work with him, they trust him completely, and he just has such a great way.
Mm-hmm.
So in the middle school, we also have a really wonderful counselor, Shakira Decree, who actually just successfully defended her dissertation. So now Dr. Decree, and she's really wonderful. We do have a health and wellness teacher as well, Anne McCabe. She teaches the classes separately, but Dr. Decree, she actually sits and helps to lead our child study team, our CST, and so she sits in on all of our CST meetings where we talk about anything kind of going on with any child in the middle school, as well as sitting in on team meetings. So we have grade level team meetings for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And so she's in on all of those team meetings to make sure that she knows what's going on with kids and what are the things that are coming up. And if there are any students that are kind of pinging on the teacher's radars, she makes sure that she's able to check in. And so while I may consult her on a disciplinary situation, it's really, for her, the reason why I'm consulting her is because I want to make sure that that we're keeping that wellness piece and kind of the mental health piece really in mind as we're working to support the kids through these really challenging situations.
Sure. Well, it's about 12:30 and 12:34. If there are any questions, please do put them in the chat. What I would say is that as I walk around leading tours and as families come and give tour, they come back to the office after their tours. One of the things that they always notice about Columbus Academy is that it's a pretty happy place overall. I think a lot of folks, and I've said this many times before, they assume that Columbus Academy is a very rigorous place where the kids end up needing to be automatons. We keep them, just moving right through. They're just little widgets, and here we go. That couldn't be further from the truth. This is a very joyful place, and the director of admissions wants you to come out and make sure that you take a tour. Come and see how it all works. We've got Viking visits Tuesday mornings for lower school until January, and then Thursday mornings are middle school and upper school Viking visits. Those are group tours. Because of COVID, we can't make the groups too big, but we also are happy to schedule individual tours for any family that is interested in such. So please don't hesitate to reach out. In addition, trying to keep all sorts of information coming your way. We have upcoming Zoom at noons, Mondays at noon. Next week is getting ready for college. There's a presentation on our STEAM program here, performing arts, internship program, and then youth sports. So that's just during the first semester. We'll have a full slate during January and February next year. So thanks very much. Nancy, are there any other questions?
No, there are not.
Okay, we covered it all then. I do wish to thank Ed Rhee for being here, Gabriel Paynter. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time today. Thank you, those of you at home, and we'll see you next week on our next Zoom at noon. Thanks very much.